Hi, welcome to the Kind Community Show. Today, I'll be joined by Paul Hargreaves, who'll be joining us in just a second. Paul is the founder and CEO of Cotswold Fayre. Cotswold Fayre supports independent retailers across the UK source top quality food and drink products, and in doing so, improve their efficiency and lowering their carbon footprints. Cotswold Fayre was started back in 1999 as a small distribution hub for niche artisan producers and quickly grew into one of the leading fine food distributors and one of the first UK B Corp certified companies. Paul is also the author of an interesting book called Forces for Good, which we'll be talking a bit more about when we bring him on. So he'll be with us in just a second. Hi, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Afternoon, Kayla. Good to be here.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So firstly, I wonder if you could tell us what made you start Cotswold Fayre.
Well, at a very basic level, I started it when I was doing charity work in Southeast London and ran out of money. So at the very start, it was really to put food on the table and to pay the mortgage. So I was running it alongside the charity work for a few years, very, very part-time, really just a hobby business more than a proper business. And once we've been going a while, I ran across one of our customers, a farm shop we were supplying with just, I think, 2 or 3 Cotswold brands at the time. And she said, "I've got a real problem, Paul, because I'm growing the business and I want to buy a lot of interesting artisan British food products, but I'm having to do an individual order for each brand I build, and it's taking far too much time. It's wasting time. It's too many deliveries a week, and it's a complete mess. So I would like to help you start a proper distribution business selling British products. I've got a house in Wales, which I'm going to sell, and I'd like to put half that money into kicking off a proper distribution business." So that planted the seed that actually there was something here bigger than the kind of hobby type business I'd slowly built up. Now the unfortunate thing is her marriage broke down and she never did sell that house, and she never did do it with me. But the seed had been planted, I guess, in my mind that actually there was potentially a very good business here, because you've got to remember, this is late 90s. So there'd been a bit of an explosion of British food, which hadn't really been on the map at all prior to that. So TV chefs were just starting to be a big thing, and people were more interested in buying proper food. So farm shops a lot of them were turned from sheds into bigger places by that point. And yeah, I guess that's where we started, and we've just grown with the specialty food sector in the UK since then.
Great. So can you give us a sense of the scope of the size of the business now?
Well, we supply about 1,700 shops across the UK and Ireland. I will say Ireland at the moment, although Brexit is hindering progress there at the moment. Maybe come on to that later. But yeah, we've got probably an average of 700 to 800 orders going out a week to shops. So yeah.
Great. Wonderful. So can you tell us a bit more about, say, some of the biggest challenges you face when starting this business?
As with any business, the challenges at the beginning are really to be financially sustainable. You need to get to a certain size. So I actually started it with another guy. I missed that out of the story at the beginning. So once the idea had been planted, I just happened to meet someone else who'd come back, also doing charity work. Actually, he'd come back from Africa looking for something to do. I thought, and he was thinking of starting a home delivery grocery business. It was just around the time Tesco's were starting there. So I said, "I'm not sure you're going to be able to compete with Tesco's, Dave. So why don't you come and help me do this?" And he agreed to do it, and he was very much aligned with me in terms of using business to not just earn money to pay our way and feed our children, but also to use business as a force for good and to change the world for better through business. So I wouldn't have done it with him unless he was aligned in that way, which he was. And yeah, I mean, we struggled really for more than 2 years, but after 2 years, he'd really had enough and was sick of doing something that wasn't earning any money. And so he actually left and left me holding the baby. But obviously the business had started, it was growing, it wasn't profitable, but a lot of the kind of structure was in place in order to be able to grow from there. Challenge wise, apart from running out of money frequently, we had decided, probably a little ambitiously, to take on a high percentage of people who had issues in their lives. So of our first 5 employees, there was 1 ex-drug addict, 1 alcoholic, and 1 guy just came out of prison. So we were trying to give them a chance where other people may not have employed them. Absolutely still believe in that stuff. I think we probably were a little ambitious, having 60% of the workforce with people from that kind of background. But obviously we've maintained that ethos since then. And obviously when you're financially in a better place, it's easier to be able to do stuff that makes a positive difference in the world, which is what we're doing now.
You touched on using business as good, and so what do you feel your purpose is as a business, and how do you articulate that in everything you do?
Number one, it's about great food with no crap in it, so quality products. And as I mentioned earlier, the fact that we're delivering a lot of brands on one delivery, it as it happens. I mean, I was doing this primarily for efficiency for the retailers back in the day, but obviously now it's far more efficient in terms of carbon as well. So it's a massive carbon reduction, delivering loads of stuff to shops in one vehicle, and at the same time being a great place to work and really looking after the people that work for us, because it still amazes me how many people haven't worked this out. But if people are happy when they're at work, they're going to do a good job, they're going to be more productive, and you're going to be more successful. But still, too many companies seem to not quite twig that and don't treat people well, and as a result probably aren't as good as they could be. So that would probably be our purpose: great food delivered sustainably and looking after both our people and people in the supply chain.
And how do you ensure that that purpose is articulated and done day in, day out, when things get tough? How do you make sure that is the backbone of your business?
I think the key is to, and this hasn't always been the case, Kane, I'll be totally honest with you, we've started off well, and in the middle of our journey, just the pressures of a rapidly growing business, lost our way. I lost my way in terms of purpose, probably, and as a result the company did too. So it probably took up to kind of year 10, we were floundering in terms of purpose. From year halfway through the life of the company till now, we've much stronger on that, particularly, and we'll come on to B Corp a bit later, but particularly since we became a B Corp, that's been really helpful in terms of embedding our purpose. So now I feel you could, not literally of course, but you could cut anyone in half at Cotswold Fayre, and our purpose, our DNA, if you like, would be there in the middle of them. And actually, as part of the B Corp assessment, you can be chosen to have that cutting in half process happen. So they can randomly choose anyone in the company and ask them about purpose, about what we're doing, DNA, and obviously if they don't get a good answer, you'll be marked down. But it's been a real, I mean, actually one of the highlights for me of last year was we're doing a part of being a B Corp, you do an impact report, which is basically how we as a company have made a a positive difference in the world over the last year. And picking up that impact report and looking through it, I was struck by how much of what we were doing wasn't driven by me, wasn't driven by the management team. It had come from the ground up, if you like, loads and loads of people doing loads of different things. And I think that really is the test of whether purpose is truly embedded in a company. It's not just a kind of marketing thing or purpose wash or greenwash or whatever you want to call it. It's actually really there if everyone can explain what you're doing in the company.
That's right. And it sounds to me on that that the behavior there is empowered. You've given the team, your whole entire team, a chance to contribute towards the purpose.
Yeah, I think one of the best things we did on this was we set up a number of change groups, we call them, which is basically, well, you know, I mean, they're kind of less necessary now because it is so embedded, but we still have them. So we've got a couple of environmental ones, one more looking out to our suppliers and one looking at the office environment, what we do there, a community group and a people group. And those little groups of around 3 to 4 people are really what's driving the change. So they come up with great ideas, and to be honest with you, we generally say yes to most of them because they are good ideas. And I think that is far stronger than, you know, imposing from above. I mean, the command and control type leadership doesn't work anymore. And I don't know if it ever did properly, but it certainly doesn't work anymore. Much better for people to be free to take risks and chance things and make a difference. Not all of it works, but if enough of it works to make a difference, then you're winning, aren't you?
For sure. And can you touch on, maybe expand a bit more about the sustainable journey across your operations, from people and to product? Yeah,
well, we could spend the rest of the podcast on this subject alone. So it's probably best if there's kind of 5 categories that you go through as part of the B Corp assessment. So very briefly, governance, that's really what we've just been talking about, DNA. Clearly, we've now written into our Articles of Association, which is the kind of legal bit of the company, that we exist as a company for the benefit of all stakeholders, not just shareholders. We have absolute transparency. All our P&L numbers, turnover numbers are on the wall in the office, which of course not many people are seeing at the moment because there's not many people there, but normally they're in full view every day to everyone when they're there. Decision making is generally pretty democratic, which I've kind of alluded to already. The next category is workers, which is all about happiness of people there. So we do decent holidays, we do sabbaticals. People can buy an extra week of holiday off the company if they want to, you know, have an extended holiday, private health cover. One big thing for me is making sure the pay gap between the highest paid and the lowest paid is as small as possible. Yes, there needs to be some based on experience, etc. But companies where a few people are getting paid ridiculous amounts of money compared to the normal people in the company, I don't get that. I mean, supermarkets pay their CEOs 360 times what the shop floor workers get paid. So in a day, they're earning as much as those people earn in a year. Just wrong in my view. And it doesn't create a good culture. Anyway, rant over on that. Better move on. Obviously, living wage, foundation living wage, which is the real living wage, not the government one. Then you've got community, which is a lot of that's to do with our suppliers. We buy as locally as possible, wherever possible, British, wherever possible. We do stuff in schools, in food banks. I think there's a couple of people doing practice interviews at a secondary school next week, just to help them get ready for the world of work. And then a big one for us is the environmental side. I've talked a bit about the consolidation side. We've done loads and loads of stuff in the office actually to make ourselves more environmentally friendly, reducing waste. All our excess food, short-dated stuff goes to City Harvest, which goes to a lot of charitable projects in London. Yeah, loads, and I could go on for a very long time, but that's a flavour of of what we do. And I think one message I would like to kind of put across is, yes, we do a lot of stuff. We got a great impact report, which is here actually. That's about 20 pages of stuff we've done in the last year, but we couldn't have done that 3 or 4 years ago. So I think sometimes you can feel like we'll never do anything. We're quite small. Everyone can do something today, and you can do something else next week, something else next month, and maybe something even bigger next year. But we sometimes get into this paralysis of not doing anything because the task feels too big. We started small. We now do a bit more. I'm hoping we can do a load more in the future. The important thing is to do something today or tomorrow.
That's it. Well, with some of these huge tasks, climbing Everest starts with one step. So you can apply that to your sustainable journey straight away. So I love that. Thanks for that, Paul. Could you tell us about some of the biggest challenges when making these sustainable changes or developments?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge for us right now is we are carbon neutral for everything we do as a business. So we've reduced carbon as much as we possibly can, and obviously that process continues every year, and we offset all the rest of the carbon, which is now, I think, 47% less than it was a couple of years ago. However, obviously we are just a distributor. We've got nearly 400 brands in our range, and there are lots of products I would like within our range to be more sustainable than they are. But if we cut out all those products tomorrow, we wouldn't be here, and 40 people would lose their jobs, which wouldn't be great. So the balance between moving forward in terms of our products, and yes, we do make decisions. We don't take things on that don't tick certain boxes. At the same time, we've got some historical brands in our range, which we're trying to push all our suppliers further down the sustainability road. Some of them aren't moving as fast as I would like them to, but obviously if we cut out £250,000 of turnover, for example, it's going to be harder to be sustainable in a financial sense in order to be able to do some of the other stuff we do. So it is the next biggest project on our agenda, is to not only for us to be as carbon neutral as possible, but also, and obviously got the whole plastic issue on top of that, but also to be pushing our suppliers further and faster down the road. We have got 19 other B Corps as suppliers now, which is, I think, more than double a year ago. So things are moving, but obviously 19 out of 400 is a low percentage. So that's probably currently our biggest challenge.
Great. And so why was becoming B Corp certified important to you, and what was that journey like? What are you most proud of from that journey?
For me, yes. Okay. So you probably are aware of the frozen food company Cook. Ed, who's co-founder of that, is a mate of mine. He first told me about B Corp, I think in 2014, maybe 2013. To me, it sounded a bit American, to be honest with you. Which put me off a bit. The name doesn't sound very British, Ed. Anyway, the more I looked into it, the more I just thought, wow, actually, this is exactly what I believe about what business should be. And I've kind of been trying to do this in a limited way for a few years, thought I was the only one doing it. Suddenly, you've got this whole community of people who pretty much believe about business what I believe. So that, I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but it really was like coming home for me in terms of my business journey. So yeah, and obviously the more we found out about it, the better it was. So in terms of what I'm most pleased about being a B Corp, it is the fact that the kind of, it's a combination of the kind of structures they put in place through the assessment, and also the networking that goes on with some of our people, with some other people who work for other B Corps. And to be honest with you, most of our good ideas are nicked from other people, as they always are. So it's that cross-pollination, and the fact that everyone I think pretty much everyone in the company has been to something B Corp during their well, it's been a bit more difficult in the last year, but over the last couple of years, most people have touched B Corp in some way or had meetings with other people who work for B Corp. So yeah, the fact that it's been really helpful in terms of changing our DNA and helping people understand our purpose.
And the whole premise of B Corp is using your business for good, right? And you actually author of a book, Forces for Good. Can you tell us a bit more about what you expect readers to take away from it?
Yeah, so the main motivation for writing that book was I loved B Corp when I came into it. Some of the language they were using, and because there are some very bright people in the B Corp movement, it wasn't necessarily, I didn't think, always understandable enough to normal people working for normal companies like us. So really, I wanted to write a book that put it in plain English, told stories about what companies could do to make the world a better place. And it would be relatable to building companies, cleaning companies, gardening companies, normal everyday businesses, not necessarily just people that were making solar panels or running, sustainable electricity companies, but normal companies could make a real difference in the world. In fact, you could argue normal companies, like being a wholesaler, for example, can almost make more of a difference because they stand out from the rest more easily. So that was the main motivation. Very briefly, it was put into 3 chunks, people, planet, and profit, of course. And if you do the people and planet bit, you'll actually become more profitable. But as I was writing it, I kind of, this dawning came upon me that actually, if we're going to change the world and make the world a better place, it does involve us changing too. So there is a 4th section, which is I call my 4th bottom line, which is about personal change of the leaders running these businesses, which I know has happened to me. And it happened, it's happened to a number of other people, I don't know. And I think unless that really happens on a deep level, potentially this movement could run out of steam. It's got to involve us changing as people, us becoming more compassionate, us crying about climate change and stuff like that. So I've actually, you might not know this, I can't remember, but I've actually I'm having another book published in 2 or 3 months, and it is called The 4th Bottom Line. And it is about the characters of what I would consider a good leader. There's 50 different characteristics of good leaders. That's basically the part that how that book works.
We'll have to get you on a future podcast to tell us about that one, Paul.
I just finalised the cover design today, actually.
Fantastic. Anything you can share with us now?
Well, it's basically it's a book. I mean, I kind of sit down at the start of each day and do a bit of meditation and read something. So it's designed for that time of day, which some people do in the evening, whatever, it doesn't matter. And it really is a short chapter, 50 shortish chapters, and each day takes a different characteristic. So let's say compassionate one day, 4 quotes, definition of the word, of course, first, 4 quotes, then a story or 2 from me, and then 3 action points to put into practice that day on that particular characteristic. So there's 50 of them altogether. I did have a few more, but I cut it down. I thought 50 days was probably enough. Yeah, that's the structure of the book.
I look forward to it. So, Paul, what lessons do you hope other business leaders can learn from you, your book, or Cotswold Fayre?
I think there's a lot of talking goes on, isn't there? And I've hinted at it before. Maybe less people actually do stuff to make a difference, and it is really, really easy to do things to make a difference, because I think sometimes we try and do too much. So concentrating on doing small things, and small things added up, can make a huge difference. We had a supplier conference back in May 2019, back in the day when you could do things like that. It was great, wasn't it? And I know for a fact that was the main message of that day, actually. It was, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. I think sometimes we can think, oh, the world's a mess, I can't possibly do anything, I'm too small. But actually, everyone can do something. It might be a small thing, it might be something bigger. But if we could all take that into each day, I mean, I'm trying to do something sustainable each day at the moment, and probably don't succeed every day. For example, yesterday, I decided to pay a bit more for a book I wanted and didn't buy it from Amazon. I bought it from a local bookshop. So yeah, something, we can all do something each day, and I think the fact that everyone can make a difference, don't leave it for other people. You can do it is a big one.
And I think there, Paul, it's also leading by example, right? So as a business leader, you making those small changes compound up. Your team are going to see you, trying to be as sustainable as you can, and they will therefore want to try and be more sustainable themselves, and that then has a far-reaching net.
Yeah, and we are a very simple business. Being a wholesaler ain't complicated. We're buying a load of boxes and we're selling a load of boxes, and what we do is just in the middle of that. So if a wholesaler can hopefully do our bit to change the world, then any business can, really.
So true. What companies do you take inspiration from, and which leaders do you most admire?
Well, I've mentioned Cook already, Ed Perry. I think it's a great guy, remarkable company doing remarkable things. In fact, I think their strapline is something about remarkable food. So that would be one. Timpson's, James Timpson, I know a bit. I love what they do with people, with prisoners. 10% of their people are recruited from prison. So their first day out of prison is working in one of their shops. I think they do an amazing work there. They would probably be the two that spring to mind first.
Finally, what's next for Cotswold Fayre, and what are you most worried about, and what are you most hopeful for?
Well, we got big plans for this year. They're a bit further away than they were about a week ago, but we're opening our own. Becoming one of our own customers, because we're opening our own food shop and restaurant, food hall and kitchen. We're calling it. It's called Flourish. So that's what I'm most excited about. But that also brings with it the biggest challenge, because we're going to be more than doubling the number of people who work for the company. And clearly, we've got great culture where we are, and we obviously want to replicate that in the new business. So that will be the biggest challenge, is taking what we got at Cotswold Fayre and duplicating it in another site that's it's about 50 miles away. Yes, we will be doing cross-pollination. People will come backwards and forwards, but to take 35, 40 people on pretty much overnight, which is what we're doing, and get the Cotswold Fayre culture in will be a challenge, but it's one I'm really looking forward to, actually.
Very exciting, Paul. And are you actively recruiting for any roles now? Do you want to put a message out there to the listeners?
Well, actually, you know what? We are, and we've been besieged with people applying. So I think for the head chef role, we had 170 applicants in 48 hours. So I don't really want to advertise anymore, actually, because we are recruiting at the moment just for the kind of management team, head chef, head butcher, front of house manager. But I think we've offered 3 people so far. So yeah,
very exciting.
But as I say, we've just been delayed a month. So it was meant to be the end of April. It's now the end of May. So,
and it'll be called Flourish. And where is it based?
It's on the main road between Bristol and Bath, the A4, so it's about halfway between Bristol and Bath.
Okay, wonderful. Looking forward to it. So, Paul, here's the quick fire round. 3 quick questions. I need you to answer as quickly as possible. What's the best business book you've read?
I struggled a bit with this because I don't really read business books because they tend to be kind of how to, and I've done this, so copy me, and yeah. So I read a lot of books on sustainability and stuff. The best one I've read in the last year, actually, I'm going to give you two, sorry, but Donut Economics by Kate Raworth is a great book. If you don't know much about economics, which I didn't. This isn't a business book, but it's probably taught me more about leadership than any other book, and that's Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom.
Wow. Okay. What's your favorite sustainable hack?
I've kind of mentioned this already, actually. The fact, try and do something sustainable each day, something small. Think about what you're doing every time you touch something, and make it a bit more sustainable. Conscious
consumerism sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, one very quick one you can do overnight: change your web browser to Ecosia.
Yes.
And they are carbon positive, so they plant trees for every browse you do on the internet. That's a dead easy one. We pushed it out across everyone's computer in the company overnight. And there's a huge, amazing number of trees that we're now responsible for. It doesn't cost anything.
No, you get your own forest.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Last but not least, what would be one bit of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Number one has to be go with your gut. I made loads of mistakes, and most of them have been me not going with my gut instinct and letting other people persuade me a better course of action, which actually wasn't. So go with your gut and stick with it.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Before we go, how do people connect with you, connect with Cotswold Fayre, and how can the viewers support you?
Well, the Cotswold Fayre website is cotswoldfayre.co.uk. I'm also, when we're allowed to, I speak at conferences and things. I've got my speaker websites, paulhargreaves.co.uk. And of course, you can buy the current book, Forces for Good, and look out for the new one, The Fourth Bottom Line.
Thank you so much, Paul. Really appreciate you being on today. Thanks for that. I'll see you very soon.
It's been a pleasure.
If you're inspired by my conversation with Paul, please remember to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with anyone that you think would love to join our community. I'm Veli, and this is the Kind Community Show.